Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another lecture. Okay, this is the last and final content lecture for social studies. Okay, and yes, we are finally at the end of this entire recording and I guess for you listening marathon. Okay, so today we're going to look at security impact of globalization. Okay, we're going to discuss things like terrorism and cybersecurity. Okay, and how globalization has increased its threats and how we can respond to them. First one, let's talk about transnational terrorism. Okay, when terrorists essentially in the past terrorists used to operate within their own nations. Now, okay, with the spread of technology, with greater transportation, okay, they are now able to conduct terrorist operations across the world in many different countries. Okay, and it is a problem because again, it can come from within, it can come from beyond. They generally target civilians because they want to create fear, and it is almost impossible to identify terrorists before they even carry out their action. So preventing terror attack is a very difficult task. Okay, and terrorists of course do not follow any form of law. They're already outlaws by that definition. So it's really a very unpredictable kind of thing. And so with technology these days, it's actually much easier for terrorists to coordinate their activities, so they can now use social media, they can now use messaging platforms to plan their attacks in advance. And because you can access and communicate with anyone anywhere, right? So that includes with their own members in other countries perhaps. Okay, and so they can use their internet to spread their beliefs and also plan their attacks. Okay, the worst terrorist attack on American history and of course in the world history as well occurred on 11th of September 2001, which is what we know as the 9/11 attacks. Okay, Al Qaeda, right, which was a kind of Middle East Islamic extremist terrorist group. Okay, they hijacked the aircraft and then they crashed it into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon. Yeah, okay, and that actually caused over 3,000 people's death. Okay, and it was really this major attack that really got us all very worried about terrorism. Okay, of course, terrorism was already a problem before, but this was such a large scale and devastating incident that everybody sort of paid attention to the issue. Yeah, okay, so I think you're more than familiar about 9/11 attacks. Yeah, so after 9/11, so one of the reasons why it was so successful is because they were able to access American documents through the internet. Okay, and so after 9/11, the American government basically deleted all the sensitive information they can from the internet, and they actually classified it. So the US responded to 9/11 by occupying Afghanistan, and they essentially Osama bin Laden, okay, would be the mastermind, okay, behind 9/11, and they eventually uh killed him, okay, in 2011. Now, the point of why Al Qaeda was so resentful against the US is because number one, they did not like the US's influence in the Middle East, okay, and secondly, they want to establish a global Islamic government. All right, so they believe in using the extreme means, okay, to do this, right? And they also make use of the internet to actually plan and coordinate the attacks, and they are also moving funds from one country to another via, okay, digital platforms as well. Okay, so again, globalization has empowered them to, I guess, be able to plan even more sophisticated attacks. Okay, so yeah, okay, and following the 9/11 attacks, America declared war on terrorism, and yeah, essentially that marked the start of the global war on terrorism that lasted until just a few years ago. Okay, and even today, okay, a lot of people condemn similar Islamic extremist groups because they don't actually follow the teachings of the Quran. Okay, they are actually extremists. Why we call them extremists is because they have a very extreme and often misguided interpretation of their religious texts that they often use as justification, okay, for their various terrorist shenanigans lah. Yeah, okay. And yeah, so unfortunately, okay, the prevalence of these terrorist attacks by these extremist Islamists has also led to something we call Islamophobia. okay, which is essentially hate crime, okay, against Muslims, even innocent Muslims, okay, have nothing to do with terrorism, nothing to do with politics, okay. They have also come under fire lah, okay, innocently, okay, because people are so afraid and so against these actions done by these extremist groups. Okay, yeah. Okay, Singapore is no stranger to terrorism. Okay, we have experienced many terror threats in the past, starting with McDonald House in 1965, before we gained independence, during a period known as Konfrontasi, which you should have learned in history. Okay, Indonesian Marines actually bombed, right, the uh, McDonald House, which is currently now, I think, around the Dhoby Ghaut area. Okay, and it was bombed then, and it killed some people. That was the first ever terrorist attack on Singapore soil. Okay, after Singapore gained self-independence, or self-autonomy, I should say. Next one will be Laju. Laju was a hijacking of the boat, the RV Laju. Okay, and yeah, that was one of the first hijacking cases that Singapore saw. Followed that by SQ117, which was the only Singapore Airlines flight to be hijacked. Okay, and it ended in a swift victory for Singapore by essentially incapacitating the terrorists that hijacked the plane. Okay, you can read about all these incidents on your own. And the most serious threat we have ever faced, okay, from terrorism, was in 2001, really around the time of 9/11. Okay, this is the threat by a group called Jamaya Islamiyah, okay, or the JI, which is essentially back then a group with links to Al Qaeda. Okay, so they wanted to actually attack Changi Airport, MOE HQ, MINDEF HQ, and American Embassy and the Yishun MRT station. Why Yishun MRT? Because that was a place where the American servicemen who were in Singapore at that time for training and for refueling, okay, they actually got on and off their shuttle bus at Yishun MRT before they went to, I think, Sembawang Naval Base or something. Yeah, so thankfully the attacks did not materialize because the ISD found out about the plans of the JI in time and then managed to capture them before they carried out. And the ISD, the Internal Security Department, has continued to do so. They are the ones mainly responsible for ensuring that Singapore is safe, okay, from the threat of terrorism, essentially. Okay, so terrorism threat remains high to Singapore, even though there's no imminent attack. We still frequently, okay, one of the cities that terrorists really want to target, okay, in their next attacks. And that's because we are one of the major cities that have never experienced a significant successful terror attacks ever. Okay, our neighbors in Malaysia, in Indonesia, this is the site of Bali, okay, in 2000 and I think 1 or 2002. The Bali bombings were one of the worst terrorist attacks to happen in Southeast Asia. Okay, and yeah, in our neighboring countries, it has still been a very prevalent case where terrorism is quite frequent. So Singapore is definitely a threat. And the most significant threat that we face from terrorism today is ironically self-radicalization, which is essentially when people who are they're not even part of the terrorist group, but they become so brainwashed by terrorist propaganda that they start to act on behalf of the terrorist organization on their own. And this is what we call lone wolf attack. Okay, so yeah, people start to consume this extremist propaganda and they now believe that it's their moral duty, okay, to carry out these attacks. And this has happened before. Okay, in Florida in the US, right, radicalized terrorists actually killed 49 people and injured 53 other people. So you can see, you don't need nowadays, you don't need to be part of the terrorist organization, okay, for you to be at risk of carrying out a terrorist attack. All it takes is you falling into the trap of being brainwashed, okay, by terrorist propaganda online. And digitalization, part of our globalization idea, right? Digitalization has made that even more easier, and terrorist organizations know this. That's why they keep on publishing all this propaganda onto whatever social media they can. And indeed, in Singapore, there have been a lot of cases of self-radicalization if you have been reading the news, especially so after the start of conflict, okay, between Israel and Palestine, uh, not just in 2023, but even before that, okay, in the 2000s, there have also been such cases. Now, the other kind of threat that we face very prominently is cybersecurity, okay? And again, this is directly to do with technological advancement. So when we have more technology, we have a tendency to put our information online through the internet, through computers, because it helps to make the efficiency better. Okay, but unfortunately, this also means that we are now all targets of cyber attacks. When people want to steal our information, steal our money, okay, all they need to do is to infiltrate your device and their access into some of your most sensitive information, which was once physical things, right, that you needed to actually steal in order to get it. So, particularly since remember our three A's, right? Anywhere, anytime, anyone, right? So now these threats can come from anywhere. We don't know where it comes from. Okay, it can be some country on the other side of the world. Okay, but yes, they can still pose a threat to us and our information. Okay, so cyber criminals might use malware, okay, to illegally access your information, and if they are getting access to sensitive information, they can really either they can use it to expose you, to threaten you, or to blackmail you lah, or hold it for ransom. Okay, and really anybody can be an actor of cyber attack. It can be countries. Some countries really do choose to spy and infiltrate other countries' system to find out secret information about those countries. Okay, organizations like criminals or terrorists can also do that to sabotage other people, or it can even be businesses trying to steal trade secrets from their competitors. Okay, and even individual hackers can do it, right? They might steal your information and then they use a virus to steal the information. Then they say, oh, you want your information back, pay me this amount of money, I'll give your information back. Okay, there are also a type of people that say that they hack because they want justice, and this is what we call hacktivists, hacker activists. The most famous one is Julian Assange. You may have heard of him and his website called WikiLeaks. Okay, WikiLeaks is a site which originally started as a way for him to actually post secret American military documents. Okay, because he felt that America's actions in other countries during war at that time were unconscionable. So he decided to leak all these classified documents for the whole world to see. And indeed, he was charged, but he actually hid, okay, in Europe, right, for a while. So he hid in, say, the Ecuadorian embassy in London, okay, and I think only this year he was actually finally extradited and tried in the US after striking a deal with the US government, and he was actually charged but also released immediately. You can read more about that. It's a very interesting case. Okay, cyber attacks, okay, you just need to know roughly the normal kinds of cyber attacks. It's not super important, but good to know. Okay, first type is the most benign, which is defacement. I changed the information on the website, okay, to spread falsehood. Phishing, okay, the one that's very common now, your scams, okay, they send you link lah, they send you all these weird stuff, okay, ask you to press and then they take your information from there. Malware, okay, malware is a virus that we commonly know it as a virus. Okay, so when a virus infects your device, they can actually gain access to it and they can even hold it for ransom. And this is the very important part. With globalization, we are becoming more and more reliant on digitalization and our devices. But that also makes us more vulnerable to cyber attacks. Okay, especially people who are less familiar with security features on digital technology. Okay, so how do we respond to security impacts, be it terrorists, be it cyber attacks? First one, let's look at individual level. Individual vigilance. Okay, self-radicalization, very important. We need to make sure that we do not fall victim to self-radicalization ourselves. So don't get brainwashed, okay, by this type of propaganda. At the same time, if you see other people who you feel might be self-radicalized, okay, it is your responsibility to essentially inform the authorities such that they can get help and your community is protected. So this is the individual level. What can individuals do? Individuals can look out for themselves and others. Okay, same thing for cyber threats. Okay, uh your very simple habits such as not using the same password for everything lah, making sure you update your password, making sure you use 2FA, don't click on stupid little links lah that people don't know who sent you one. Okay, these are all very basic cyber security measures that people can have the habit, okay, to inculcate and make them less vulnerable. Yeah, okay, you can skip this. Okay, for governments, okay, governments also have their set of measures. This is what we call internal security measure. Okay, now a lot of countries, you will realize that why do I have to always go through immigration, then I have to go through the metal detector and everything at airports or when I cross into another country. This is because they want to proactively prevent terrorists. So if they spot you with suspicious items, suspicious weapons, they can stop you before you can even go into the country and cause harm. Okay, so countries have taken initiative for things like scanners, like I said before, security cameras, your CCTVs to make sure no suspicious activity is going on. At airports, okay, nowadays, and immigration crossing, you have biometrics. So you can forge a passport, but you definitely cannot forge an eye or a thumbprint. Okay, so biometrics is something that has increasingly been used to identify people at borders. Also, laws. Okay, and there's a type of law called detention without trial. Okay, what essentially means my students get this confused sometimes. Detention and arrest are two different things. Arrest means I legally charge you with a crime. You have to go through a judicial process and you'll be held, okay, until you can be charged and sentenced, and then you'll serve out prison term. Detention just means I hold you there, right? Just like when you go for detention in school, right? I hold you there. You did something wrong, I hold you there. That is the punishment. In this case, detention means that anybody that is suspected of causing harm or potentially being a terrorist can be held by the government without going through the judicial process. So you don't need to go to court or anything. You are held in custody, okay, because you are deemed to have posed a threat to the nation. That is what we call detention without trial. You are being detained, but you don't get the judicial process. And this is only employed when you have people who pose serious threat, okay, to the national security. So in Singapore, we do this by the ISA. So anybody that's deemed a threat to well-being of society can be detained under the ISA. So the aforementioned terrorists from the Jemaah Islamiyah, they were actually held under the ISA as well. Okay, but in Singapore, we try to meet it out a bit. Yes, it is a very powerful, very controversial law, okay, because it completely subverts the judicial process, okay. But for example, we have introduced advisory boards, okay, to make sure that ISA detentions are lawful and justified. The president also has a final say, okay, in who you can detain and who you cannot detain. So just like we discussed in governance, okay, there is different checks and balances to ensure that no one person or no one group actually has too much power. And in this case, the power to take somebody's freedom away, okay, that is a power that definitely needs to be checked. Yeah, and indeed, okay, people have been arrested and detained under ISA for these offenses. Okay, so including teachers, even students have been detained under the ISA for these reasons. Okay, so America also have such laws. It's called the Patriot Act in America, but just that in America, they are one step very extreme. Okay, they are actually using Patriot Act as a way to sometimes they torture people, okay, to get the information out of them. Now, we are not saying these laws are very good or very bad. No, there is no way to judge that objectively without considering all the facts. Okay, the facts are indeed these laws protect security, but they do it at the expense of the rights of the individual. The supporters will say detention without trial is necessary because it is too dangerous for them to be free. Okay, and again, it's very difficult to prosecute someone for terrorism when they have not carried out the terrorist attack. But do we really have to wait until they kill hundreds and even thousands of people before we can arrest them? That is the supporters' perspective. Critics say that uh, perhaps it is not right for the government to have the decision-making power to take somebody's freedom away. And indeed, there have been cases where innocent people have been detained for no apparent reason. Okay, so it's really up to you to decide to what extent is this justified. This kind of detention without trial, is it justified? Okay, cyber threats. Now, Singapore, we tend to allocate expertise and resources to deal with cyber threats. Okay, in particular, we have agencies like CSA, Cybersecurity Agency, who are actually involved in coordinating cybersecurity measures. We also have our strategy, cybersecurity strategy, to make ourselves more cyber resilient. So that comes on into building resilient infrastructure. So we have to protect our digital infrastructure from hackers and malware and whatever. We want to secure our digital cyberspace by informing people, making sure that everybody play a part. Okay, we want to work with other countries to make sure that we can take down international cybercrime syndicates. Okay, we want to build a cybersecurity ecosystem where we keep on adapting to the newest threats and coming up with new innovative um, technology to respond to it. And also we need the people, okay, the smart people who will be the ones developing this technology. Indeed, other countries also have similar things, like Japan, being one of the most digitally connected nations in the world. Japan also has a very, very robust, okay, strategy that they work with the public and private sector to secure their cyberspace. Last one, internationally, what can we do, okay, to protect ourselves from these security threats? Cooperating on transnational terrorism mainly comes down to one thing: communication. Okay, we know that terrorists can now make use of transportation and technology to go from place to place to place to spread their ideology and carry out terrorist attack. So the best thing we can do is to communicate with one another to make sure we can catch these terrorists when they are moving from one country to another country and prevent any acts of harm from being done in the first place. So Interpol is the International Criminal Police Organization. They work with 195 countries all around the world. Okay, and they actually act as a global police, if you can call it that. Okay, so they are actually cooperating with the entire world, all the governments of the world, to work together to identify terrorists and arrest them before it's too late. Okay, ASEAN, okay, our neighbors. Okay, we know that this region is very prevalent for terrorist attack. So ASEAN countries have actually come together and adopted the Our Eyes initiative to make sure that we share information on people who are potential risks and potential radicals. Okay, so that we can actually respond and even prevent terrorist attacks in the first place. And indeed, Singapore is an active participant in these programs, going as far as sending our troops to Afghanistan, okay, to actually help, okay, our fellow countries in defeating the terrorists in the Middle East, like ISIS and Al Qaeda. Okay, and the cooperation has been relatively successful. Mas Selamat, which is one of those JI terrorists that we talked about earlier, he actually fled Singapore, okay, after we arrested him. But because of Malaysia's and Indonesia's support and communication with us, okay, we were able to then eventually capture him again and lock him up for good, okay, so that he doesn't cause any more harm. Same thing for cyber threats. It's really the same idea. It is about sharing information, working together to develop new framework. Okay, so whenever there's a cyber threat, okay, you need to have cooperation to make sure that we can A, prevent the threat from spreading, and B, if possible, find where the threat originated from. Definitely it's transnational. It cannot be from one country. It does not only affect one country. So working together gives us a better shot, okay, a better shot at crippling any of these cyber threats in the first place. Okay, so yeah, that is it for this topic, and that is it for this syllabus. Okay, it is a lot of content, but you realize that the content ideas are very, very simple to understand. all that's left is for you. Usually what I recommend to students is one concept, two examples. For every big concept, you memorize two examples. That should be enough. Okay, so all the bullet points that you might have seen in your syllabus document or your teachers have shown you, those are the factors that can come up for SRQ. Okay, so revise them. For each one of those factors, memorize at least two examples. You will be okay. Okay? Alright, so I hope this lecture series has helped you in understanding the content for social studies. Alright? And also give you a better understanding of the world around you and how it operates. Okay? Really, from all of us here, okay, from all your teachers, okay, from everybody here, we are all supporting you in your O-level journey and beyond, right? And I really, really want to wish all of you the best in your upcoming examinations, and I am very confident, okay, that you will do your very best in the examinations ahead. Okay, so feel free to leave any questions, comments you have in the comment section below on any of the videos here. Okay, and I will try to respond to you as much as can. Okay, so that's it for the content lectures, right? Thank you very much for being here, for being part and staying all the way through. I know a lot of you watched this entire playlist the night before your exam. Okay, so all the best to you, right? I wish you really the best in your exams and your life ahead. Okay, thank you very much, people, and I'll see you guys when I see you. All right, bye bye.